or this week leading up to it compared to other years, considering, you guys aren't really,
Contenders.
yeah.
Well, we're still, recognize that we're building, I mean, I think our four seeded wrestlers in the top 10, underclassmen, and so, I mean, we got to go punch some All-Americans in this tournament, and hopefully some maybe national champion or two, and build for next year, and not just the end of the year next year, but the season. Let's take something out of this and and move forward. It's like what we just talked about. We're not contenders, probably not contenders for a trophy. I'm not going to say that we can't do that. Obviously the seeds don't say that, or the rankings don't say that. So I would hope that we have some high expectations and put our emphasis on let's do better than what people think, and for the student athlete, you're putting the emphasis on the team, and when you put emphasis on the team, it allows you to perform at a higher level, I believe, rather than just focused on your individual performance.
Was it a pleasant surprise to see Wyatt get one of the at-large bids?
Yeah, I think so. I thought Travis would get it over, I thought. But that's the difference in performing, not performing. Struggling in your performance when you're injured, so I think people just assume, which he is, injured. What can he do? Are we going to take a spot away from someone else? So Wyatt, again, this is an opportunity for him, and hopefully we'll see gives him another 2 weeks of maybe healing up some things, and hopefully we'll see some fire under his ass or his butt.
How's Willie feeling? I mean, being left out. I mean, obviously that's tough, but how does he feel? What's his mood behind it?
Oh, I think he's really disappointing. He's disappointed with that he's not going to nationals, and that kind of the way things ended a little bit for him. Back-to-back weekends. Well, no, that hurt a rib. I think early January, mid-January, and then hurt a knee in February. And just recognize, hey, it's tough, and you got to adjust to it. And I think he struggled a little bit with his adjustments, and I think these are things he's thinking about right now as he's sitting out.
What kind of changed for Wyatt kind of going into the national tournament last year?
I don't think anything changed. I just appreciated the opportunity, I mean, there for a while he wasn't going, right? He was an alternate that got put in after somebody dropped out, and so I think you just appreciate the opportunity, and I think, again, he needs to look at that this way, and I'm not sure what he can do or what he's going to do, but I just think that whatever road you're taking, it's going to be a rough road, because of where you're ranked at. So just know that you've beaten a lot of people in your career, and take that attitude to the championship.
Coach, Coach, this is obviously Dayton's first full season in 2 years. How have you seen his conditioning and really his maturity as a wrestler improve?
Well, guys, remember that as we go into this tournament, this is a tournament that is unlike any other. Shouldn't be like this. Personally, mistakes were made, and real careless decisions were made way too early.
From who?
I'm just saying from a standpoint of 6-year seniors in these tournaments, guys that are 6-year seniors and some of them 7 years. You know, you got some 25-year-old kids wrestling 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids. I mean, not that that's, you know, this, if you were a world champion, you'd have to do that, but we're not at the world championships, you know. And so this is a lot tougher tournament. So getting back to your question is, we cannot overlook people out here. You know, this is a different tournament from the standpoint of the quality of people. You know, some of these 6-year seniors, you know, which we have one, they knocked out some young kids, you know. And so this tournament is going to be a lot tougher, you know, a lot tougher than it's ever been. It's going to create some, you know, I think if you looked at some statistics of at each weight and how many of these guys are in there, you're going to see a pretty remarkable number, and we have one, you know. So anyway, for that reason, when you talk about Dayton Fix, you're talking about a very classy weight, tough weight, a lot of wrestlers, right? I mean, a lot of wrestlers, a lot of good young wrestlers, a lot of, you know. I mean, I've been impressed with the Big 12 in the weight class. You know, some guys that maybe not necessarily how they performed against Dayton Fix, but how they performed nationally. So Dayton Fix has had a full season this year on top and bottom, you know, and hopefully that's helped him a lot. You know, the endurance of building your endurance in folk style wrestling on top and bottom, you just can't get that like in a month, right? I mean, it's the hardest style of wrestling in the world. When I started wrestling freestyle pretty regularly after I decided I wanted to be an Olympic champion, I mean, I couldn't believe how much easier it was. Don't get me wrong, but just my point is that this, you know, you don't just get the conditioning level you want in a month, right, on top and bottom. And so for Dayton, I just think that gives him an opportunity all season long. He's done really well, focused on his performance. He has some tough competition, and I don't want to look ahead to the finals. I want him to stay focused on each and every match. But I'm excited about where he's at, right? And he's done a nice job with the team. As we struggled a little bit after losing some guys to injuries, you know, he's done a nice job of stepping up and playing that role.
When
Speaking
you
of-
consider the road Dayton's been on the last 2 years, personally and as a wrestler, is there anything on there that jumped out to you and impressed you the
Well,
most?
let me tell you, I
working
mean,
back?
it's easy for him. I mean, you know, this is a kid that wrestled his whole life all the time, you know. All of a sudden you're sitting out a year, you know, and I don't know, it just seemed like I think you just got to appreciate how highly motivated he is at being successful in wrestling, because during that year of not wrestling, he maintained his direction of wanting to be a national champion, of wanting to be a world champion, wanting to be an Olympic champion. Those goals just outweighed any negativity that there was, you know, and it kept him moving in a really, and it was just nice to sit back and watch that out of a young person today. I mean, there's something much more important, and it's going to take a full year. I got to sit around for a full year, you know. I'll do it. You know, that's what he's saying. I mean, so I'm sure that's what he's saying. I'm going to do this.
Where did you see that patience and that motivation?
Just the want. He's got a lot of want in him, you know. We don't have to do anything in wrestling, you know, but those guys that really want it, they're motivated. It's probably why I've coached 31 years. Is the few that you have that are just so driven, you know, that it's what you show up for practice for each and every day, you know. Just hanging out with those guys, and they're 18, 19, 20 years old. It's just like, yeah, this is a little different. Yeah, you know, we have had a lot of them, you know, but trust me, that's exciting to be around. Very, very motivating for a coach.
In terms to your comment about the age disparity in this tournament, obviously you have the other end of it as well with a fairly green wrestler in Carter Young in a field that's full of seniors and
Yeah.
juniors. I mean, how
Tough
do you
weight
approach
class.
that with him?
Who cares? I mean, at this point, who cares? You're going to have to beat somebody. You're going to have to beat one of those guys. You're going to have to beat some people. And I don't want to make it sound like an excuse. I'm just saying that things are a little bit off. And hopefully, as we wade through these next 4 years after this, get this out of the way. This is not something that's going to take place for just 1 year. It's something that's going to take place for 5 years, right? You understand that? Yeah.
How do you
It's
toe
because
the
of the
line?
COVID year, yeah.
Huh?
That's what you're saying, because of the COVID year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just, we need to get that weeded out, and in time, it will be, right? And so we got to deal with it everyone's got to deal with it, but yeah, for Carter, it's just a matter of, being in a position of starting as a true freshman with COVID year, right? There's a little bit a bigger, there's a bigger hill to climb than what the normal hill was going to be, and we knew that going in, and we knew where he was at. But I just think that for Carter to have some success in this tournament, what is success to, determine success for Carter? What is that? Is that going 3-2, 2-2? I hope it's for him is to be on the podium, tall order, right? And so, we got to wait and see what his performances look like before we can make that judgment. But I would say that the Big 12 was good that he beat the guy that beat him, right? You dropped down to the consolation and hit the number one guy in the country, who the guy the week before you beat him, So I wouldn't say his tournament was great, but I was pleased with them returning turning that loss around and winning it to finish seventh, So we just need to make sure that for him, he recognizes that this is definitely the toughest tournament year he's ever wrestled in. There's nothing going to be easy about it. And I think for the most of our guys, it's the same. But we also got to recognize that we got guys that can wrestle. And we're in that bracket, and we're pretty tough, right? I mean, we came off the Big 12, and I would say that there was nothing that surprised me in our efforts. Nothing. So, where I was going in, like, can this happen? Can we have 3 weights and not place? Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, and so for me, it was nice to see our champions, who were ranked number 1, go in and win it. So back to Carter.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like this could be potentially you talked about looking forward to next year, that this could be a tournament that could be growth for
Yeah.
him, going up against guys who may or may not be here next in the
No,
tournament
I'm not
next year,
looking
but-
forward to next year. I'm wanting to create some motivation. This team needs to create some motivation, and some pride when we were able to walk out of there this weekend and work their tails off and chase some medals and be excited about the opportunity of what team you have the potential of being on, and so, what else are you going to do? I think, I don't know what else, what message you should send your team, other than, listen, we win. Let's go win, and recognize that we have a great opportunity to come out of this on a roll as we prepare for spring and freestyle this summer, and prepare for the fall next fall.
On 125, Trevor gets the 7th seed. This year he's looked more aggressive and less passive. Last year he didn't make it to the podium. What do you think's different from him this year? What have you seen?
Oh, I don't know if there's much difference in him. I think he's been pretty, I don't know, been pretty reliable with what his habits have been. Just seen some. I think he's going to need to wrestle, 7 minutes and not 2 or 3 minutes. He's pretty good within his head with strategy and things like that. But I think he needs to trust himself with how really good he is and how he can get to the legs and how he can score. I hope that as he's preparing this week that he's trusted himself a little bit more of what he's capable of doing. So we saw last weekend the Big 12. We saw him, score some pretty cool wins at the end of the matches and takedowns and picking up 2 takedowns in less than 30 seconds and not scoring 1 takedown in 6.5 minutes. Right. You just want to see him trust himself and be able to go out and do that. I will say that the best he wrestled all season long was last weekend.
After the